Hey, it's Bill Gross, the LA probate expert. I'm really excited today to have not just an attorney from Nevada who specializes in helping families in estate planning and avoiding probate, but also a friend who I knew back before he was married. He was a single guy here in California, Rob Tzall. Rob, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Bill, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit. I mean, I know some of your story, but give us a little background. How did you, where'd you grow up? And then how'd you get into law? And then how'd you get to Nevada?
So I grew up in Los Angeles, the Valley, in the good old days in the 90s, and born and bred there, went to UCLA, and after that, moved
Whoa,
around
whoa,
a
whoa,
bit.
ho, 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 ho. I forgot about that. That's right. We'll edit that out. Go ahead, keep going.
Anyway, I went to UCLA, and after that, I worked on Capitol Hill for a couple of years. Then after that, I went to law
Wow.
school, University of Miami.
Wow.
Then I went abroad, where I met my wife, who is from Southern California as well. I only had to go 6,000 miles to meet her. And when we came back, it was 2008. Our first child was coming on board, and it was time to get started in building a career. And I said, I'm not going to waste any time. And I hung out my shingle, and I've been in private practice since then.
And now you have how many kids?
5.
Five kids. Well, I knew you back before, and you had one on the way when you moved there, and then now here you are with five. So a bundle of love, and I love watching you and Heather on Facebook when you post about your kids, and give her our fondest regards. So you're an attorney, and your focus is on helping families solve problems by preventing problems and estate planning. That's really what the focus is. So tell me how you got into or attracted to estate planning, and then what your focus is in that now.
So I've been fortunate that my whole career has been about helping people rather than solving their problems.
Mm,
And I've had lot of experience working with families and businesses. And really, I wanted to take that practice ethos I had of being able to get to know their situation and being able to find tailor-made solutions to those problems before they became problems. So estate planning was that next venture. It was the next area. So now we're really able to help everyone in the most important parts of their lives, their families, their businesses, and their legacies.
So I spend a lot of time with families that don't plan ahead and get an estate plan. They end up in probate court. You deal with people who have the foresight to plan or talk to you and get motivated to plan, to put a plan together. What do you see as a difference between people who plan ahead like that and people who unfortunately are stuck going to probate court to resolve those issues?
People have to be honest with themselves. As much, I mean, I know I'm going to live forever, but as far as everybody else, I'm not so sure. And when really you have to be honest with yourself, you have to say, what have I built, and what do I want to protect? And you have to and be honest with yourself that one day you won't be here to have that guiding hand,
Right.
and to think about everything, that the time, trouble, and treasure that you've invested building your legacy, how to transmit that to the next generation in the easiest way, in the easiest way possible. Most people don't want to think about that because the end is difficult for us to think about. I suggest another way to look at it, that you've spent all this time building something in your life. It would be such a shame for when you're gone for people to have to argue about it. It's much better to give them a plan.
Heartbreaking to watch. I'm involved in that process regularly. So, people all the time when I talk about estate planning, I say that, if you don't do estate planning, 100% chance you're going to end up in probate court if you have a house or you have a business, those kind of assets. And people say, okay, I have a estate plan or a trust. I don't go to probate court. And I go, well, truth is, and I see a lot of cases obviously tried in probate court that are trust related, family planning happened, but something wasn't anticipated. What do you see? I know what I see, but what do you see as most common mistakes or omissions that cause families, despite getting a estate plan, to not plan properly and end up having to litigate it still or fight over it still?
Planning is an ongoing process.
Mm,
It's something that you do again, and you check it and you fix it and you make it better. It's
mm,
not estate drafting that we do, it's estate planning. So
mm,
someone can come in and say, I want to trust, I want to will, I want to do this thing. And they
right,
have the paperwork and they put it in their drawer and they feel very confident about it.
right,
But their fortunes might have changed. They might have gone
right,
up, they might have gone down, they might have had more
right,
kids, they might have gotten divorced, whatever. Might have
right.
gotten married. And they never take the time to look at that plan, because going back, we were talking about before, they were brave enough to bridge that gap and make decisions for the future. And they thought, oh, I've made all the decisions I have to. No, life changes, circumstance changes. We've all certainly seen that over the last 2 years. And people really, at a minimum, every 3 years, they should really be looking at their estate planning and saying, does this really reflect what my wishes are, but two, what my current situation is?
Right.
That
There's a famous quote by Mike Tyson, which is, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Right. And that's, we all have, people have had setbacks, family, health issues, and things like that. And certainly that causes you to replan. And there's other people who win the lottery or have great success who also need to replan every 3 years based on the different circumstances. So, you're so right. So obviously, not planning is a number one change. Things change. What else do you see? Do you ever see plans that are written that just didn't cover something that you think should have been obvious? I know I've seen litigation on such things. I'm not an attorney, but when I tear into it, I realize what's gone on. Do you see those kind of things? What are common mistakes you see in some of the plans people get that maybe aren't personalized that lead to problems?
So I'm glad you mentioned personalization, because I would say the biggest problem is either that they're too small or too big. But let me put it this way: they're too simple or they're too complicated. Estate planning really goes to heart. There's three things involved: establishing what your legacy to be, where you want your money to go, and how you want it to, and what you're trying to preserve. Part of that preservation can be tax planning or not. So many people will just say, "Hey, I'm going to throw it in a trust, and we're going to avoid probate, and I'm saving everyone a lot of money." What about taxes? If the vehicle, if you're a high net worth individual and the vehicle for your trust is only to transmit it to the next generation, you might be costing them a lot of money.
Right. Right.
So that's on one side. The other side is, if you're not a high worth individual, you still deserve and need the same high level quality of planning, but you don't need special interest trusts. You don't need Q-tips. You don't need any of these exotic things. You can do something that's just going to serve that vehicle. It's going to be the vehicle for you to transmit your wealth to the next generation.
Yeah, you see, one of the most common cases is sports teams are often sold because they're by far the biggest asset. They leave that to their family, but they didn't plan ahead properly so that the family could afford the taxes on this asset that's worth $1 billion or more. So they're forced to sell it to pay their share of taxes on things, and it can be very difficult, and you might be forced to sell at a time that you're not going to get a good price for it. So those things to think about. One of the other misconceptions to think about planning is that it only is for when you're going to die. I know personally I've been involved with several estate plans that worked very well because the person was incapacitated. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having, living will and medical issues prepared, not just for medical decisions, but also for who's in charge of, your assets, who's in charge of making decisions for you?
So I would almost call it, I don't want to speak ill of other attorneys, but it's almost malpractice that if you're not doing, even though it's basic estate planning, you're not doing a power of attorney. If you're incapacitated, you need somebody to actually make decisions for you. I get calls all the time from people, family members, non-family members as well, saying something happened to XYZ. Now we have to get a guardianship. A guardianship is a much harder process than when a person can make those decisions to give somebody that power of attorney. Right. It's simple, but I cannot tell you how many estate plans just don't have it. Right. Additionally, we were talking about this a few minutes ago. When you're married, the states have defaults about who can make decisions regarding your care. If you're dating somebody and you're not married with them, or you don't live with them, or you are living with them and you're still not married with them, typically state laws don't allow any old person to make those decisions simply because you are in a close relationship with them. There has to be some sort of paperwork behind that. Right. And additionally, so you have to assign that person. But also, what I find that most people are not aware of what it means to go quote on life support or quote medical intervention. And this really gives the opportunity to say what they want to do. I have a lot of clients that they choose a low level intervention, but when it requires higher, that's when they feel that they tell people to not intervene. And people are just denying themselves the ability to really have their wishes memorialized and acted on when they don't do these very simple things that every estate plan should have.
I agree. One of the other common issues I see regularly, because I'm involved in the real estate side, is people get these great estate plans And the attorneys will say, okay, here you go. Here's the deeds for your 5 properties. Now you need to get them recorded. We don't notarized. Here they are. Go get them recorded. And for whatever reason, they don't do that. And years go by and they refinance, or they try to sell the property, or they sell the property, forget about it. And the property, it's like, I tell people, it's like a safe. You bought the safe, you brought the safe home, you hooked it up to the wall, you open the door, but then you put your gold coins on top of the safe. You never put it in the safe and close the door. The purpose of recording it is to put it in the trust in, or the estate plan, whatever it is, and close the door. Do you see that happen as often as I do? In
Yes.
California, we have a whole process for that. And it sounds like a simple process, but it's not simple once you go to court. So tell me about how do you see that happening in your practice?
I see it all the time that people are very willing, people want to get the paperwork, and like we talked about, get that paperwork and put it in a desk. But as you're saying, that deed doesn't go in a desk. That deed has to be filed before it goes into that desk. Right. And so what we do is our work's only done once the client has that estate planning done, and we help them with those practical matters, talking to their bank and getting the paperwork to transfer. Those things we have our paralegal team take care of those things, because it would be such a shame for someone to say, yeah, I did all the work, but what do you mean it doesn't work? And really it's that attorneys are not there to make, I know people talk about it in jokes, but we're there to make people's lives easier. And it takes about an hour, and we sit down with them and we give them detailed steps of what to do now that they have an estate plan. So crucial.
And one of the things I do when I refer somebody to an attorney for estate plan is I'll follow up with them, and I'll follow up until we know the document's recorded, and I'll verify the document's recorded to give to the client, say, yes, you send it off recording. Yes, here's a recorded copy. Oh, you got it in the mail. Good. I'm glad you got it as well, but I want to let you know I see it online. The whole world now knows it's been recorded. That's important. It shouldn't be just in your possession. Maybe it's misrecorded. Maybe it's has the wrong APN and accidentally gets recorded on the wrong property. All that work would go down the drain if you don't have a proper proof. Siri, Siri loves getting involved in my video calls. Sorry about that. So, okay. So that's the most common issues that we see. Tell me if somebody wanted to get together with you and talk about a question. Before I go there, the most common misconception I find, tell me if you hear this one too. The most common misconception I get is, well, I don't need an estate plan because I have a will already done. And I say to people, we understand all the will is when you go to probate court, they say, do you have a will? Yes or no? You do, great. Here you are. It's in probate court. The will is effectuated in probate court. Without one, you're probably in about the same position, depending what the will says. Do you hear that all the time? And how do you dispel people that misconception?
So I learned this from I'm not sure if it's necessarily true on a biological point, from a biological sense, but my father told me that these big parrots that people have, they last 80 or 90 years.
Yeah.
And if you want your family members to love you when you're gone, never buy one of these, because they will outlive you and they will curse you that they have to take care of this bird.
It's true.
And so people really think they're doing a favor. Hey, I did a will on LegalZoom. I did a will here. So yes, you're doing a favor in this. You can feel good that you put your wishes out there, but you saved your family no trouble.
Right. Right.
They're going to still have to find an attorney, and we're all over the place now. So your loved one might have passed away in another state where you don't know where the attorney is, and you got to find an attorney.
Right.
And you're going to, hopefully that attorney knows what they're doing. So a will is really, like I said, a will is a tool, and it's a piece of what really everyone should have is holistic, comprehensive estate planning.
I tell people, not only is a will not save you in probate court, it's now something else that somebody can argue about in probate court. If you don't have a will, in California, there's a set of rules on how things get disposed. You can think the will tells you what you want it to say, but that's only if the will is accepted. The other side is going to argue against it. The signature's no good. They weren't of sound mind. It's a forgery. They're going to give you a million possible answers to why they're going to fight the will, but you just really created another point of attack for the other guys, whoever the bad guys are, on your situation. So again, you want a full, as you said, holistic estate plan that covers everything, both for while you're alive and then while you're unfortunately incapacitated, and then for after you're gone, make sure things get taken care of. So Rob, look, it's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. We've enjoyed you guys and your family here. Not the full family though. I think we only had 3 kids, was the most we had at once. So at our house, but I've enjoyed our time together here today. If somebody was interested in talking to you about putting together an estate plan or had some key questions, how would they reach you?
Feel free to visit us at our website, www.contemporarylegalsolutions.com. And you can Google that as well if we're the only one. Click on our website, our contact information is there, as well as contact forms. And your fielder, everyone's fielder can feel free to send me an email personally. It's robert@contemporarylegalsolutions.com.
Fantastic. So we have contemporarylegalsolutions.com is the website, and then robert@contemporarylegalsolutions.com. We'll put it in the description down below. Rob, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much for your time today. And thanks for helping the families you do in Nevada.
Appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Mhm.